Okay, guys. Wow. This is going to be kind of an unorthodox video for me. This is the new Riverboat, the pedal wheel Riverboat. It's really big, as you can tell. To give you an idea, my photo area is just about 3 feet wide. Material, actually, I take that back, it's like 3.5 feet wide. And normally I zoom in so you don't see the edges. Well, you're actually seeing the edges on this one. So it's a pretty big boat. This is at an angle. Let me go ahead and walk in front of the camera, sorry, and move it a little. Try and scoop this back. There we go. See if that makes a difference. Okay, so this is the Riverboat. I still have some minor cleanup to do on it, but this is literally 99.95% done. Things that are left to do are more for me in cleaning up this one than anything else. As far as the design of it, all the pieces are cut. I've just got to tear it back apart and do a parts count to make sure everything is there. And then it'll go up on the site. So a couple of things about this one is it's over 2 feet long. And if I could find one of my tape measures, I'll be able to tell you. So let me pause this while I walk in front of the camera and go get a tape measure. Okay, got the tape measure. So let's see what we've got. We are from end to end. Looks like about 28 inches. So it's 28 inches long, and it should be 10 wide. That's one of the easier measurements. Overall height, if we go to the top of the, oops, that's also my gantry. If we go to the top of the cornice, it looks like 15, I want to say. 18 if you go to the top of the mast. So it's not really a small kit, to say the least. To give you an idea, let's compare it in size to some of the other kits that I've done. Let's see, what do we want to start off with? Well, let's start off with something simple. So, the shipping containers that I did, I sell a ton of those, and they're your basic, it's your basic thing where you're talking about something that is, 6.5 inches by 3 inches. So, a little bit bigger than some of the other stuff that I've done. How does this stack up in, say, a modern setting against something like one of the food trucks that I did? Those, if you've played like any of the Batman miniatures game or the DC miniatures game or Marvel game, they have trucks in those. These are scaled, minor scale to actually use those. Put one of those next to it. Really big. But to give you a little bit more on the idea of big, I did, and they should be coming out at the same time as this, some ironclad boats, which are pretty big pieces. They are very long. You're talking 18, 19-inch hulls on them. So pretty decent size. Until you put one of them up there next to it. Like I said, this is a big kit. You could actually fit the ironclads inside of it if you really needed to. So if I get, oops, there we go. So if I grab the other two ironclad designs, you can kind of get a feel for just how big, that ship really is. I need to pop this back on here because it's still not glued yet, because all of these are still waiting for final pictures. So I mean, yeah, very big kit. but that's the idea behind it. Wanted something that gives kind of a little more flavor, gives you a little more room to work with. I could have scaled it down. The problem with scaling it down is it's not as usable then. Then it becomes a, oh wow, it's neat to have on the table, versus, okay, this is where the battle's going to happen. Move some of these out of the way, some of the smallers. I'll just set them down here on the floor and make sure not to step on them. Yeah, even with the small ironclad, just a huge ship. That's the way it should be. Okay, so some of the details on this one. This is full of details. We're going to start at the front, kind of work our way to the back on it. So I'm going to pause again so I can move the camera a little closer and get you some close-ups. Okay, so I've zoomed in the shot a little bit so you can still see it and focus in on the person I'm talking about. So first thing we're going to start off with is I went ahead and actually put a mast on this one. Turns out that most of them did have a mast. It was designed for lowering the gangplank, walkway, what have you. So I included that feature in it. This one actually does, and I'm going to move this out of the way because once again they're not glued in place yet. In the final design they'll actually be glued, and you can hook strings to them to get it to move up and down because it does rotate. So if I tilt this one, there we go. You know, it can go up and down. And it's wide enough for most 40mm bases, so you've got a decent amount of space there. But this piece, I'm going to move this up a little so you can see, it moves up and down so that when this is attached to it and you attach the strings, if you pull this up, it'll actually raise this up. And you can adjust the rigging. It also moves side to side, just as it would on a real boat. Holding it in place right now, I've just got a rubber band there setting for the exact height that I want. But what you'll actually get with it will be a ring that you just glue on, and it sits on that ring, and that's what holds it in place. The mast on most of these was actually two pieces. There was a heavier functional boom, and then they put an additional mast on top for the flagpole and those sorts of things. So I incorporated that same look and that same feel to this one. Okay. I even added, and if I zoom down, bring it down here, these are actually tie downs, so there are little holes in them. I'll try and move the camera a little. See if you can see that. There it is. There are actually holes in those that you can run your wire, your string, what have you, from those up to the mast part. So just kind of a little extra to add on. Move this out of the way so I don't break it. But just as an idea of scale, standard Space Marine, like I said, they're pretty big. Next up, and we'll try and move the camera up a little, you've got 3 balconies. You've got the main deck, balcony number 1, balcony number 2, and then there's even space up here at the very, very top for another balcony. So let me grab my Space Marine and pop him up there. And you can see in there, there are people in there. And we'll show you those in a second. So that's really the front half of it. I'm going to pause this, flip it around so you can see the back half, because that's where things get interesting. Okay, and now we've moved around to the back of the unit, or of the steamboat or riverboat. Once again, we'll pop a Space Marine up there so you can get an idea of scale. Like I said, got to have fun with some of these. So to the top of that, just so you can see it, it is 5 inches to the top of the wheel. The wheel itself is actually about 6 inches in diameter. I've flattened the bottom of it so it'll sit, but you notice there's a lot of extra stuff here. I mean, there's stuff up here and pins sticking out and everything else. Those are just because I haven't cut down the axles to the final length, because once again I have to take this one apart. But if you notice, these axles are designed to allow it to pivot. So if I lift this up, notice how that pivot point works. Same thing with this one. And not only that, if you had an actual wheel on it, it would turn. I even included, there's a spot right here, and I'm going to try and move the camera again. Apologize. A lot of camera movements in this one just to get you guys so you can see everything. So right here is a pulley, and there's actually an opening in this building that allows it to pass through, so you'd run a rope up and over, and then it would attach to these. so that you could literally adjust this as if it were a real boat. Kind of cool. The only piece of this setup that is not what you'd find on a normal boat is I added this big monster gear to drive it all. I wanted something that showed a little bit more than what a shaft drive setup would do, and this kind of gave me that effect. One of the funny things with it is it's actually got a real gear reduction that I use for the chain, for the small sprocket to the large sprocket, in that it's if it were a chain drive system or belt drive system like this, I ended up setting it at a 4-to-1. So for every 4 times this one turns, the big one would turn 1 time. It's little details like that that kind of, for me, actually make it more fun. It adds in something that you wouldn't expect. It's just kind of one of those little inside jokes for me. So that's kind of the business end of it. But the big thing, like I said, was that all of this is set up so that it actually moves the way that it should move. I even have an option for it if you're building this just as a model kit, where it's a full-size wheel, so without the flat spots on it. And what that allows you to do is when you put it on a stand, it allows the wheel to droop just right. So it would be in the same position, but you'd have the bottom half of it. And depending on how you rig it, you can have it go up or down. So that is kind of the main part of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, and I'm going to continue this on the next, and we'll see how it goes from there.